Elite Facts presents
8 Misconceptions about Great Britain. 8. It rains all the time. Now, if you just boil it down to the north of England, then maybe you have an argument here. Even then, however, the north is pretty dry for the most part, thanks to various forms of media such as films, television shows, and Broadway plays. When people think of Britain, we all tend to immediately think of bad weather. We see rain clouds, storms, and bitter wind, general misery. However, when you compare the United Kingdom to other parts of the world, Britain enjoys comparatively pleasant weather. Sure, during the winter months, weather can be brutal as temperatures become bitterly cold, between 0 and 6 degrees Celsius. However, the average summer temperature ranges from between 15 and 23 degrees Celsius, often higher. So why does Britain have a reputation for bad weather? The logical answer to this is most likely because winters tend to be longer than summers in Britain, as well as its portrayal in media like we mentioned previously, and most artwork of Britain depicts the weather based on expectation, and we all like to dwell on a period of bad weather, even if the weather is generally good.
7.
Dental hygiene. Oh boy, this stereotype. So we've all seen The Simpsons, and most of us have seen that one episode in which Lisa needs braces. Who remembers the Big Book of British Smiles? Admittedly, this joke was hilarious, however, it was extremely over-exaggerated. This one is commonly referred to in comedy shows poking fun at Britain, but is believed by many to be hard fact. While a percentage, just like any other country, will suffer from dental problems, the standard of oral hygiene is generally very high. In fact, the shortage of available NHS dentists is a constant issue in England. Just like anywhere else in the world, a person with bad teeth is considered the slightly gross exception, not the rule in Britain.
6.
Good old cup of tea. A lot like the whole accent trope we previously mentioned, apparently the British are as addicted to tea as Tony Montana was addicted to cocaine. There are many ways of looking at which regions drink the most tea. However, Britain is not the biggest tea-drinking region by a long shot. Surprising, right? When taking the whole population of Britain into account, they only rank somewhere around 3rd worldwide. Now, 3rd in the world still sounds like they like a lot of tea, right? Well, compared to Turkey and India, who ranked 1st and 2nd respectively, Britain doesn't consume anywhere near as much as those two countries. However, depending on the source you've used for your research, China still sits above Britain in the tea-drinking league tables, even when considering population. Now, with this information set to one side, we find ourselves asking, where did this stereotype originate from? Well, while it is true that Britain does love a good cup of tea, it is far from the top. Britain actually drinks almost as much coffee as it does tea. I mean, you can't walk around a street corner without seeing a Starbucks in your line of sight. This misconception may actually stem from a linguistic difference between Britain and other English-speaking regions. In most places, the evening meal is referred to as dinner or supper. This is correct terminology in Britain too, but an evening meal is very often referred to as tea. So when a British person invites you round for tea, they are inviting you for a meal, not to just sit and drink tea, which is how some people imagine the situation. This is also true of the Commonwealth nations, where come for tea usually means come for the main evening meal.
5.
Great Britain is one country. Common misconception, to be fair, as Britain or Great Britain does refer to the general area. Neither of them, however, refers to a country. Think of it like how Europe works, sort of. In fact, it's probably best not to mention Europe and the UK in the same sentence at this point. Anyway, Britain is a general term for Wales, Scotland, and England collectively, while the British Isles also includes Ireland, Northern, and the Republic. England is most often incorrectly named in this way, and English people are often referred to as British. As for Northern Ireland, it is part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which differentiates between the part of Ireland that is governed by England, hence the suspension of the Northern Ireland government in 1972 and the Northern Ireland Assembly in 2002 from the Republic of Ireland, which is a self-governing nation.
4.
Britain loves warm beer. What kind of sick animals do you take the English for? Who in their right mind would drink warm beer? We have no idea where this really strange stereotype came from, but we're sorry, it's just not true. You will never walk into a British bar, order a beer, and get served a warm beverage. Hell, even if you were sick enough to ask for a warm beer, we're pretty sure the bartender would ban you from their pub. In fact, the most popular lager beers in Britain tend to be of the extra cold variety, and this applies to most bitter beers and ales too. Nobody likes a warm beer, the British included. Having said that, most Americans like their beer super cold, so an English beer may appear to be warm in comparison, but it is still cold. Chilling beer too much can damage its flavor.
3.
Accents. We've all done it, don't lie. We've all done a British accent before. You know, going Cockney while saying crap like, "Hello, Governor, fancy a nice cup of tea and a crumpet?" Now, we hate to break the news to you, but no one in England is that posh, and the only people in England who even come close to that accent are from around London, and even then, the accent isn't anywhere near as strong as it's presented in the stereotype. Like, seriously, if you go up north towards the Newcastle region, you'll be greeted by a rough Geordie accent. The reason for this stereotype may come from the way in which English is generally written in Britain. It is always taught that you should write properly and use correct language in formal writing so that it's easier to understand when read. Despite this, British people rarely ever speak the same way that they write. As we've stated previously, Britain has a wide variety of accents, some even bordering on dialects, the majority of which do not sound remotely like how foreign media has portrayed British speech. To see some examples of this, we suggest watching some British television or British cinema. Oh, but please, for the love of God, stay away from the news there. You'll be doing yourself a favor. Good examples of films include the likes of Trainspotting for a Scottish accent, 1971's Get Carter for the Geordie accent, the TV series Peaky Blinders for the Brummie accent, and almost any other film set in England for the typical London Cockney accent.
2.
Scottish money is legal tender. Although it can be accepted by shops throughout Great Britain, as much as cashiers hate to accept Scottish notes, some even downright refusing them, Scottish notes are technically not legal currency outside of Scotland itself. Now, although shops outside of Scotland are not legally obliged to accept it, banks outside of Scotland will accept it, but legally it is down to the manager's discretion whether or not to accept it in any other location. What is the difference between Scottish pounds sterling and the pound sterling used in the rest of Britain? Well, literally nothing. The only thing different between the two is its appearance. So why do many places outside of Scotland refuse to accept it? The most common reasons are that either they are not commonly seen by most people outside of Scotland and so are not recognized, or that its design makes it easy to forge. It may be frustrating if you come from Scotland for a trip around Britain, but there really is nothing you can say that will get shopkeepers to accept Scottish money if they don't want to, no matter how much you insist.
1.
Free healthcare. We certainly wish it was the case, but sadly it's not true. The National Health Service, or NHS as it's commonly known to people outside of Britain, is not free, nor will it cover any illness or injury. The NHS is paid for through taxes and donations and will only provide certain approved services or treatments. While it's true that emergency treatment is almost always free of charge, treatment for any long-term illnesses or injuries is almost always covered, much like the rest of the world that's not offered free healthcare. Certain drugs will be provided for certain illnesses, but if your illness or the drugs and treatment you require is not on the approved list, you will not get it from the NHS. This is always a controversial issue in Britain. The NHS is also not available to non-British citizens except in the case of an emergency. Even then, the emergency must have taken place within Britain.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more Elite Facts.